Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
Scandal at Michigan. Pete Alonso is now an Oriole, and we break down the baseball winter meetings. We'll talk things over with Julian Guilarte. It's all right now on a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Hey, yo, welcome in. It is a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. How's everybody doing? How's everybody feeling? Met fans are like, how do you think we're doing? How do you think we're feeling? Lots to talk about on this episode of the podcast today. We'll dive into the baseball stuff, the offseason. Let's be honest, one of the most impactful weeks in the history of the New York Mets. We'll recap the baseball winter meetings with Julian Guilarte coming up. He was there. And we'll hit on the Michigan football scandal because I think that people are not hitting on what Sharon Moore's greatest crime was, but we'll get into that. But before we do anything, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I say it every episode. It really does help out the podcast. No matter what platform you are taking the podcast in on, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's start things off with the University of Michigan story because by now you know the headline, right? Sharon Moore, the head football coach of Michigan, fired after allegations of an affair with a staffer. As if that was not bad enough, shortly afterwards got arrested for an alleged assault. And before we get too deep into it, look, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. This is just allegedly what happened. But man, oh man, the headline of this story, this is a guy with young kids, married, and I think he's just passed Mark Sanchez for the all-time fumbled bag in the history of sports. I mean, you talk about making millions of dollars, one of the best jobs in your profession, and now it's all gone. And look, the allegations, they're way worse. I'm just staying surface level here. And you can find them anywhere online. You dive into TikTok on this story, and it'll make your hair curl. And look, I don't like going too deep in news stories because I don't like to ruin my Netflix documentaries. I love those Netflix documentaries ripped from the headlines, so I avoid the headlines so I don't hit any spoilers, right? Like, if I had followed the news even remotely closely this past year, I might have ruined that high school catfish documentary that was mind-blowing. So I'm just going to stay on surface level. And look, the details, they're only going to get worse, right? Like, people didn't even dig and they got this story. So what do you think is going to happen when they start digging? It's only going to get worse. So this is basically the Coldplay concert couple from earlier this year. This story is going to be everywhere for a while. So the surface level stuff, Moore, he gets fired, inappropriate relationship with the staffer. Hours later, he's basically arrested over an alleged assault. And that part is all over the news. But you know what's the most interesting part of this to me is that those are the headlines. Those are the A headlines. And then right under that, it's like basically everybody knew this was going on. It was like the worst kept secret in the entire building. People inside the program, people outside the program. Everybody knew this was going on for a while. Boosters knew, staff knew, agents knew. It's basically been going on for 2 seasons. The football building had more whispers than like a high school cafeteria. It's wild that and nobody did anything about it. And I don't even know that it was whispers. It seemed like people were talking about this out in the open. It was like the worst kept secret. And here's the thing, because this is not even the full story. You look at Michigan the last couple of years, and it has been a parade of scandal. You talk about, obviously, the headline there is Jim Harbaugh. He leaves to go to the Chargers. But how about the former offensive coordinator, Matt Weiss, arrested by federal prosecutors for stealing private, intimate images of student athletes, charged with hacking, and not one charge, 24 of them. Now, he's pleaded not guilty, but he's also facing multiple class action lawsuits. So that's really, really bad. And if it ended there, okay, that would be enough. Multiple assistants arrested for drunk driving, Denard Robinson, Greg Scruggs. I mean, the list is too long to name all of them here. It has basically been one after another. It's been a very sad, very avoidable conga line, basically, to the police station. This is like a greatest hits album of scandal in college sports. And this one, man, it's one banger after another. But you know what the biggest part of this that no one's really talking about, what Moore's greatest crime actually is? And we all know it, but we're not going to say it out loud. And the answer is really, really simple. When it comes to Sharon Moore, it's that he simply did not win enough games anymore to make it worth dealing with the scandal. That's it. And that's the truth. Everything else is window dressing when it comes to college sports, especially, forget college sports, college football. You can survive scandals and accusations and investigations and DUIs and lawsuits, the whole alphabet soup, as long as you do one thing, as long as you're winning. Winning is the universal disinfecting. Winning is the bleach that magically makes everything look clean enough to just keep rolling along. And when you're rolling, everything gets brushed aside. In college football, that is the rule. But unfortunately, when you're not, suddenly the exact same behavior becomes unacceptable. The exact same behavior all of a sudden becomes, well, this is a violation of the values of this institution. I mean, it is the most corrupt thing going on. Nobody this week suddenly found morals at Michigan. Again, this was an open secret. What they found was a convenient moment right after the early signing period, no doubt, that where the coaching moves are all made. They could say, you know what? Now we got to deal with this. Now this is something that we can't avoid anymore. And you know how you can tell they've already moved on? Because the conversation in college football circles immediately shifts to, well, who are they going to get next? Who's the next head coach going to be? Who's going to step in? That's where the concern is. It's not about the scandal per se. They're already having those conversations. And let's be honest, the fact that those conversations are being had publicly means they probably already have their answer behind the scenes. That tells you everything. The train keeps moving. The machine does not stop. Michigan football is bigger than any one human being. And once they decided you're not helping them win, that machine rolls right over you. And this is not to excuse Sharon Moore in any way, but that's college football. There are no rules. There are only results. And Sharon Moore's real sin wasn't the scandal per se, at least not in the eyes of Michigan. It was he didn't win enough to hide it anymore. That's college football, and that's the bottom line. Okay, we're joined now by baseball reporter Julian Guilarte to talk a little hot stove baseball, what's going on this offseason. The Mets certainly front and center. Maybe at some point the Yankees might make a move too. Julian, Thanks for giving us a couple of minutes, man. How's everything?
Gordon, thank you so much for having me. Feels cool because I had you on my podcast a few years ago, so now we're going with the other side.
You got to pay me back, absolutely. Well, you're just back from the baseball winter meetings. What was your take being down there for a couple of days?
It was a fun environment. I always enjoy it. It's definitely a different atmosphere because it's like the only time all year you get everyone in one room together for a couple of days. So I always liked going. It was like guys wrote in the piece today. I was like, it's more about what they did into than what they did do when you're talking with the Mets and Yankees. So that's interesting because the last 2 years it's been a lot of stuff they both done, but this time they both sat in the sidelines. Although the Mets lost two big players, Yankees, I don't think they really lost anything they were looking for in those meetings because there wasn't that many guys, and I don't think they were in on any of those pieces really. But I think it was a really tough week for the Mets, and it was a little tough for the Yankees, but they kind of have more wiggle room, I guess. But the Mets have like some assets they could do trades, but I don't know what they're gonna do now. It could be anything.
Yeah, it does seem like what the actual plan move, and it's not plan B. You know, people making out like the Mets lost things. I guess Diaz they wanted to bring back, but Pete, it was clear they were not interested in bringing him back. So whatever the plan is, boy, they're keeping it close to the vest. How do you think that they approach this? And let's start with this because a lot of Met fans have been upset about and almost feel like they're not going to end up spending money. From the people that you talk to, do you get any sense that the Mets budget is going to change and be less than it's been in years past, significantly less? Maybe not at the second most overall, but is it going to all of a sudden be pared down dramatically?
I don't think pared down dramatically, but maybe not what everyone expected just based off what's happened because I thought they may have gone after Robert Suarez. Now he goes to Atlanta, so it just keeps getting worse. They were in on Kyle Schwarber. Like nothing is going in their favor so far. They need to do something soon because the fan base is about to lose it. Their win total projections are definitely going backwards because they haven't gotten any better. So Yankees are kind of just flatlining. Like it hasn't got worse, hasn't gotten better, but they're kind of just like neutral mode. But for the Mets, what's next? They could do some trades maybe. Do they go for Cody Bellinger? There's definitely a lot of talk there. And the longer he goes unsigned by the Yankees, it makes me think he's not going back to the Yankees because if it was really the Yankees' top pick, like I know Boris takes his time, but the Yankees are taking a while with this. I thought it would have been done if they really wanted him back, but I think it might be a battle between those two teams. And then the Mets are definitely going to look for some pitching, but I question if they're going to spend on the top of the market because they haven't shown the appetite to do that for pitching. Will they try like a Michael King or Ranger Suarez who might cost a little less than like a Valdez, like an Amai possibly, like maybe something like that, like just for a few general ideas.
Yeah. Now, do you obviously the goal is going to be, and the goal for everybody in baseball, build a team that can beat the Dodgers. At this point, it's
Hmm.
the Dodgers and everybody else. Do you view the Mets plan this offseason to build a team that can beat the Dodgers this upcoming season, or is it about the long haul? And maybe,
Hmm.
I'm certainly expecting them to be a playoff team, but maybe there's going to be not all the big moves in one off season.
I kind of thought about that. That's kind of been kicked around a little bit just because how they approach it. Unless they do a blockbuster, and get some pitching. I mean, the Marlins have a few arms in the market. I think like for the infield, the first base situation is interesting. That's like my biggest question. Like, who's gonna play first for them now? Because they seem very content to let Pete go, but like, what's the plan? Is it Vientos? Is Vientos getting traded? Do they sign someone like O'Hearn or maybe even like an Okamoto or a Murakami in the Japanese market? Like, are they willing to go in that water? Like, first base is definitely a huge question mark for me because left, I feel like I feel the outfield. I like Carson Bench a lot. I think he might end up making his debut this year. And Bellinger, let's say they got Bellinger and Bench, that kind of solves the outfield, like hypothetically speaking. The infield's a little interesting to me. They have a lot of infielders still, too, on that roster.
Yeah. How about the idea that there's been stuff floating around here? I think it came from some of the Padres announcers that the Mets could still be tearing down it, that maybe Francisco Lindor could actually be moved this offseason. Is there any way you
Hmm.
see that? Had you heard any talk of that when you were down at the
Wow.
baseball meetings?
I could say I heard some stuff like the clubhouse was definitely an issue and he was part of it. I don't know if that means he's getting traded, but I heard there was definitely an issue in there, as was been well reported by Mike Puma and now a few others. So I would tend to believe there's something there that caused maybe, but their pitching I think was a bigger issue than that for why they collapsed last year. But I don't think he would get traded. I'd be surprised. I guess you can never completely say no. I know the Padres are shot with some relievers, like you said. Like they were talking about Mason Miller, Estrada, and this guy Moran too. So maybe the Mets try to do that. They got to beef up the bullpen. Devin Williams, yeah, he could be all right as a closer, but I think they want it to be Williams setting up Diaz, so it's going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any free agent out there right now that you could say, you know what, if I had to put money on one guy ending up with the Mets, who would that be?
Hmm. I wanted to say Framber Valdez in the beginning of this, but now
Right.
I don't. I'm not as sure about that. So, so I want to go with Cody Bellinger here or Ryan O'Hearn or something safe. Like, all right, I guess I'll go Valdez because I feel like they have to figure it out somehow. Like they got to get someone in there if they don't want to do a trade because now, like, what if they have to trade for offense because of the two offensive holes they've created? So, I mean, they could still fill it out in free agency technically, just it's going to be harder than what they thought probably.
All right, let's switch to the Yankees a little bit. Certainly a much more defined path, it seems like, where it's they want to bring back Cody Bellinger, and then everything kind of falls in line behind that. I felt like each day that goes by that Cody Bellinger is not signed, the odds go down that he's going to get signed by the Yankees. Like it just the odds seem to increase that somebody's going to go to
I
a
think so
crazy number that
too.
the Yankees are not comfortable with. What do you hear about what the plan B would be if the Yankees don't get Bellinger back?
Well, it's interesting because I think they are actually trying a bunch of other stuff. They just haven't matched up with anything yet. So, like, I've heard some different things. Someone told me the same thing you said that they thought that it was a holding pattern from Bellinger. And then Cashman said they are poking around, just haven't matched up yet. I think that came out like yesterday or something. And I think there was some more stuff that trickled out today. But I don't think he should be holding them up. If he is, I guess they're going to start losing some things. But I think they have to make other moves if this thing takes a while. I kind of agree with you. Does the Dodgers go back and get him too? Because they've been talking about it a little bit, and then an outfielder. I still wonder about Philadelphia, even though they got Schwarber back, because their outfield's a little bit vacant. I know they want to get rid of Castellanos, so I think there could be something there. If the Yankees don't get him back, do they try like the Brendan Donovan trade, which has been talked about? Do you try the kids? do you take a flyer, and it's always Garcia, or the more exciting option, which is the one I think everyone would want them to do in most sick cases, is just sign Kyle Tucker because I think he's a better player anyway. So
Yeah,
go play for the better player.
yeah. Do you think there's any possibility the Yankees dive into those waters?
I mean, I won't completely shut the door, but it's not as high as you would like it to be, I don't think. But some people do think it could happen still. Some people think they're targeting him quietly because and nothing's happened with Bellinger yet. But it's just odd because you're seeing all the reports. It's Belly, 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 Belly.
Yeah.
But the days are going on, and like the Mets are getting more desperate now. And Stearns loves his run prevention. That's one thing that Bellinger's going to provide. And that's why he did the Simeon move, I think. So I think he's trying to maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to go defense first and play off with that with like some complimentary hitting and some better pitching. Like I'm not. Maybe he's looking to do something like that based off what we've seen so far.
Yeah. How about the big name? Tarek Skubal, obviously he's going to be a free agent a year from now. Tigers, one day you hear they're definitely keeping him. The next day you hear
Yeah.
there's trades being worked out. What was the talk at the winter meetings?
Okay, so I actually went into AJ Hinch's press conference and I have covered them a little bit, so I'm kind of like learning about this as we go, but like I'm conflicted as well. I think it would take an overpay to get him, obviously. I don't think the Tigers are itching to trade him. But they might if it's like an offer they can't refuse. Some Tigers people told me they still think it's unlikely, but the guy hasn't completely shut the door on it, so I can't say it's like a 0% chance. The Mets are the best team to trade for him because they have the prospects to get him and they could actually pay him. And not many teams can do that for what he's going to command. So, and the Mets do have a shot if they can. They have to overwhelm the Tigers, though, I would say.
Yeah, well, look, if there's ever been a time and an offseason where they need to pull a rabbit out of their hat, this is certainly the one based on how the fan base has reacted to the move so far, especially the Pete move. That has completely crushed the fan base, and they are so anti their team right now based on that move alone. You know, the thing to me about Skubal getting moved that I think prevents that is the fact that he's a Boris client. And Boris generally
Yes,
does not have their guys signed a year away from
I
free
agree.
agency. So if you're trading for him, you can't give up the most if you want to get him, if you don't know that you can get him to sign to an extension. And if you're the Tigers, you can't move him unless you're going to get the highest package. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving pieces that kind of have to come together, even though for the Tigers, if they move him, it really is kind of throwing up the white flag.
Yes, that's why I don't think he does get traded. If I have to place the bet, I'm saying he stays. Now, if they don't play well for some reason and they get to the trade deadline, then maybe at that point they would consider the move. But I think they should be good enough still, especially in the Central. It's not that great. I mean, their team's pretty similar to what it was last year at this moment in time. I know they had their issues, so they're trying to work around the edges and add some more pitching a little bit. But I think it's a tough message to send to the fans of the Tigers. Like,
Yeah.
even if you can't pay him, like, I think they should just go all in with him next year and see if they can get it done. Because, like, they've gone a little bit better each year. I mean, both years were ALCS, the LTS Game 5. They looked better for most of the year and they kind of faded down the stretch. So, like, could they clean up some of the stuff that, like, caused the collapse, maybe? I would look towards that. But. It's you can't say never, especially because the Dodgers and Mets both have the money to pay him. They both could send a lot of high prospect packages. It's just an interesting thing because like if the Tigers can't pay him, then who are they ever gonna end up paying? It's like a big star for them because like that's the perfect guy to give the money to. But that's a big contract, obviously, whenever it
Yeah.
happens.
Oh, I mean, it's going to be a monster deal. And the Tigers have the benefit of playing in the American League at least. They don't have to worry about, the Dodgers are in the other league, and there's no Dodgers in the American League. You look at, as great as the Blue Jays were this past year before that were a last place team in the American League East. Who knows if this is going to have any staying power? The Yankees don't seem like they're going to be big spenders. There's no team in the Central that makes you say, oh, geez, how are we ever going to beat them?
That's
And the West
true.
is kind of up in the air, too. I mean, the Mariners were good, but, we've seen
Yeah.
the Mariners fade. So it really does make sense for the Tigers. I mean, if the Tigers end up moving that guy, it's like you're saying that there's really no chance that we're ever going to win a World Series again.
Yeah, that's a good point as well because it has been since '84, so they're like in a similar time frame as the Mets. So they're starting for a championship out there in Detroit. So I think I agree with you. I think it's their best interest to keep him and try to go all in and see because, like you said, the American League is not invincible. Like there is a chance Tariq could carry them through a few series if he gets hot, and he almost did it last year. It was close. They just couldn't score enough for him,
Yeah.
but. And if they add like another pitcher, like another righty power bat or something, then they could still be at the top in the American League, I think. Like you said, Yankees aren't really moving the needle. Blue Jays, yeah, that would be my favorite right now because they got season. They do
Sure.
look pretty good, and they might get a Bellinger or not Bellinger, Bichette or Tucker. I could see landing with them. Some people even think they could get both, and that would be absolutely crazy if they got both somehow. But
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, the Blue Jays are ready to spend. They're hungry and they're motivated too. But yeah, I think the Tigers have a good shot to make the playoffs again. And once they get in, anything can happen. But we'll have to see how it all goes. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, what is the market for Tucker? What was the talk about where he's going? Because you hear these terms of 10 years, $350 million. Yankees aren't in. It doesn't seem like the Mets are in. I guess
Yeah.
the Dodgers are in on everybody because they can be, but outside of the
Yes.
Dodgers and Blue Jays, where is this market developing for Kyle Tucker?
That's what gives me a chance of hope that like maybe the Yankees will try to sneak in because like it might not be as crazy as we had previously thought. Yeah, the Mets, I don't think they're gonna go all the way up there, but they're definitely in the Bellinger waters, I think. It's just tough to commit over $1 billion to your outfield, even because they just got Soto last year, so
Hmm.
I don't know if they would do that.
Yeah,
I
and more
guess you never
left-handed. I don't
know.
know. They kind of need a
Yeah.
right-handed power bat.
They do,
They
yeah,
just
because
had
there's
one,
no
but they decided
yeah.
not to bring it back. But yeah, it's going to be
Yeah,
tough.
because Simeon's not the pop guy Alonso is. He'll provide a little balance, but he's not Alonso's pop, obviously. They definitely need some righty power. Maybe that's why I kind of like the guy Okamoto, the Japanese player, because he could play first, he can play third, and he's righty. He has good contact skills and good pop as well. So maybe that's a guy that they try to go get because their corners seem a little unsettled. Maybe Beatty could hold down third if he doesn't get traded. Vientos is kind of up in the air. You still got Mauricio and Acuna too. I feel like some of that's probably getting traded and like Jeff McNeil. It's just like too many people.
Yeah. Ketel Marte, there's a lot of interesting names that have been kind of floated in possible trades. Ketel Marte, best second baseman in baseball, currently with the Diamondbacks. What's the motivation for Arizona to be possibly moving him?
So I talked to John Morosi about this yesterday, actually, because the Red Sox are very hot on Marte. Like, there's been a lot of smoke around the Red Sox going to get him, that they have the right package to get him. The motivation for the D-backs is that, like, there were some clubhouse issues last year, some kind of stuff happened. Someone stole stuff in his house. He, like, took a lot of time off, and then, like, there was, like, a miscommunication or something else. But, like, his 10-5 rights kick in, so then he will have more power to veto more trades if they don't do it this offseason. And then they want pitching. I think they're trying to reshuffle a little bit. I think they have to realize the division they're in, and they have to do something to kind of change the landscape of their team because I don't think their budget's too high after getting Corbin Burns and like trading Eugenio and then Josh Naylor. So they're kind of like rolling it backwards. It seems like I think Merrill Kelly might go back there, but. That would be the motivation. I know Tampa's in there too. The Tigers have floated the idea. That seems to be like the top three for him. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to Boston at some point, but if they don't do the right offer, obviously they'll keep him.
How about the Padres? They seem like they're always itching for a trade. AJ Preller, the reports are he's working on something gigantic, something amazing. Oh my God, the blockbuster he's going to pull off. They have some of the worst contracts in baseball. The Manny
They
Machado
do.
contract is terrible. The one for the shortstop that used to play with the Red Sox, I can't.
Xander
Xander
Bogarts.
Bogart. Oh my God, that
That's an albatross.
contract. That is might be the worst contract in all of baseball. How do
Yeah.
the Padres reshuffle the deck, especially when they got it's not just the Dodgers are in their league, they're in their division. They've been trying to take down the Dodgers for forever, and they have not really been successful at doing that. What do you think they do this offseason?
Padres is such a wild card to me. I know there's a lot of Fernando Tatis talk, but I'll say a couple interesting things about that. I talked to someone there and I asked, and they were like next year. So I was like, okay, like they don't think he would go this year, but I guess he's thinking that maybe they'll try at least one more year with Tatis to see like if they could get to where they want to get to. And maybe at that point, like they'll try to start slimming more payroll just because He's like the most tradable asset they have, and their farm is kind of deplenished after all these moves they've made. So I think they're kind of in a weird spot because they lost Cease, probably gonna lose Michael King also. So it'll be to be determined with them. I know they'd love to trade Jake Cronenworth, but that's a tough contract too.
Yeah, they got a
Uh,
lot of bad ones.
yeah, I know the Phillies apparently were trying to poke around for something with like maybe Machado and like Jackson Merrill, but I don't know if the Padres would deal him. He has a lot of value. And I know they want to deal some of those relievers. Maybe Mason Miller gives them back a big haul, but they did give up a lot to get him. So I think they'll do something we're not expecting.
Yeah, AJ Preller to me is the guy in your fantasy league who takes somebody 3 rounds early just so everybody can tell him, "Oh wow, what a great pick! What a great like he makes big
Uh,
moves, but it doesn't lead to building a great team." And the fallout, especially with their sale, the payroll is so high. They got some just unmovable contracts. So unless they all of a sudden say, you know what, you can have Tatis, but you got to take Machado, or you
they
can have
might do something like
yeah,
that.
you
I
can
could
have you
see
can have
it.
Mason Miller, but you got to take Xander Bogaerts. I don't see any
Yeah.
way that they're going to be able to move any of those guys.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because Machado's eight. It takes him to his 41 season. I think it's a long, and then
He's
you
got
Dart.
he's got one
Yeah.
more reasonable year. I think it's like 28, 29 million, but then it skyrockets to like
Oh,
40. And then it goes
okay.
from like the next 7 years after that, he's making 40 a year for 7 years. So
Yeah, it's
that's
tough.
a toxic contract.
Another one is Yu Darvish too.
Oh
Yu
yeah.
Darvish is on his last legs and he's making a bunch of money.
Hmm.
And yeah, none of it's working for them. And they're in it, like you said, they're in one of the tougher divisions in the league. They almost got through the Dodgers in 24, not last year, obviously, but they didn't quite get it done. And if they were to trade Tatis, so there's a way to reset a little bit. You could get a lot back for him. You can restock the farm. You can get some major league talent, and then like I guess they could try to use the money for other things and from like lesser areas. I don't know to like round out some stuff. Yeah, they probably would probably try to trade a contract with him. I would guess to try to just like really clear the payroll. I mean, maybe they can move Machado to ace some money. Bogarts, no way. They're not
Yeah.
moving Bogarts. Like
At
at
least
least
Machado's still productive as a player. Bogarts
exactly,
is not.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Dodgers. Everybody's watching the Dodgers. Do they have another big move in them?
Dodgers, the Dodgers. I mean, I walked into the hotel. That day was crazy because I go in, Kyle Schwarber gets signed, and then like 2 minutes later, when Diaz gets signed, I'm like, okay. And then nothing else happened but that day. But Diaz going to the Dodgers is such a big swing because not only do the Mets lose their closer, they give him to the team that's like the best already, and you patched up one of their few weaknesses they might have. So I still don't know how anyone's going to beat LA right now. They're just like too far ahead of the pack. The only thing, like I said before, is they probably need an outfielder. I think everyone just says the LA's never, you can never rule anything out with them. I know Kyle Tucker, I think we talked about this. They want to try like a low year, high AAV thing. I don't know if he'll go for it, but they're going to try. Like we said, Bellinger. I can see them trading for Stephen Kwan because they did try the deadline and he would kind of fit them pretty well. And then for pitching, bullpen, maybe Fairbanks if they want to add another arm. I know they've talked about that. And then I would say that's like probably a good synopsis for now.
Okay. Orioles make the big move for Pete, but of course, the offense really wasn't the issue last year. It was the pitching, especially the starting pitching. Do you get the sense that the Orioles, even after the move for Pete, which is significant, right? $30 million a year, do they have the payroll flexibility to still go and add, especially starting pitching?
I think they do because I've heard they're going to be aggressive in the starting pitching market, and that's a lot of people are reporting that also. They're in on the talks for Edwin Cabrera with the Marlins, so that's not a high salary, but that would be a good arm to acquire to help fix parts of rotations because, like, I didn't really like the Grayson Rodriguez trade unless they know something we don't know. Maybe they think he's not going to recover. I could see them being in Valdez because I know someone with the Astros had I mean, someone with the Orioles now had a hand in signing Valdez. So there's been some
Okay. Interesting.
reporting there.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's been some stuff there. I think they've checked in on King and maybe Ranger. Actually, I don't know about King, but I think they may have checked in on Ranger Suarez. I could see him going there too, maybe. Well, probably one. They'll maybe sign one, trade one. I could see a scenario because Cabrera doesn't make that much money if they're able to do that. And then maybe they could sign like a Ranger Suarez, and that would make it look a lot better. Because Bradish and Rogers are good, but after that, it's like a lot of question marks.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered a lot of teams. Is there one team that you think keep your eye on this club because they're going to make a big move. Of the teams either we've covered or we haven't even talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Pirates are kind of itching to do something. I don't know about how big, but like I can see them making some trades for offense. I know they tried to get Schwarber. They've been talking to Polanco. I know that's not a massive one. That's like a middle, but he's a good player. Like he'll help wherever he goes. I kind maybe I'm trying to think. Someone should get him. Maybe the Cubs. I feel like the Cubs are lurking around some starting pitching because they tried to get Dylan Cease, and I think they may have tried to be in on Devin Williams too, and they haven't really done anything yet. So maybe the Cubs can land a guy like Amai. That would be interesting. I would like the Yankees to be in those talks. I haven't got any indications they really are. I'm sure that they talked about it. I know like they definitely went through it, but I don't know if he has like a visit with them. I know the Yankees pitching staff is good and they'll have some guys back, but like I think they should try to enhance the strength and like because they have to stack the deck somewhere. Like if you could do Umai, Cole, Fried, Rodon, and Schlittler, then that's like really good stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as everybody comes back healthy, it's going to be a while before you get Rodon back.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
before you get Cole back. So those are big guys, and it almost has to be like the Dodgers situation last year when it comes to Cole.
Yeah.
35 coming off Tommy John surgery, you probably slot him in for maybe 125 to 140 innings. Where do you want those innings? You don't want them at the beginning of the season. You'd probably prefer, if you're going to be a playoff team, to have them later on in the year, but that's going to be another tough thing for the Yankees to juggle. Well, look, Julian, great stuff. Really appreciate it. And with the baseball, we've gotten some moves already. There's going to be more down the road, so hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Thanks, Gordon. Have a good one. I really appreciate it. Let me know when it's out so I can share it everywhere.
Absolutely, will do. Thanks, Julian.
Remember college? Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.
Okay, Met fans, let's get to a real conversation. And in the words of Michael Scott, how do you tell someone you love, I told you so? Because this is finally the week where it happened. It was just a matter of time. Pete Alonso, no longer a New York Met. He heads to the Baltimore Orioles, 5 years, $155 million. And of course, the subheading is that the Mets did not even make an offer to Pete before he left. And I know Met fans are ticked off about that. So let's get into all of it right now because David Stearns told you that basically that this was going to happen. And this is a sign of where the Mets front office is headed. And Met fans, I will say, you are allowed to feel however you want about the Pete news. That you can be sad, you can be livid, you can be confused, you can be frustrated being a Met fan because here you have one of your favorite all-time players walking out the door for nothing. Your team didn't even make a contract offer to him. But the one thing you can't be is you cannot be surprised. You cannot be shocked because this news, this was clear as the nose on your face. This was not a player that was being stolen away from you by some surprise offer in the middle of the night. The Mets have been basically telling you Pete was not part of the future. They told you it last offseason, and they did nothing this year to make you think it was going to be any different. And from the moment David Stearns showed up, the Mets are no longer running a sentimental baseball operation. They're not handing out long-term deals because a guy was a homegrown hero or is huge with the fan base. That's not the way they're doing things anymore. This is not the Wilpons anymore, and that's really good news for you moving forward, even though this is a move you are going to hate. I understand that. But this is the way that modern championship caliber organizations operate, with a cold-heartedness about the bottom line. And I get that you hate David Stearns, but his blueprint is pretty visible. It has been clear basically since day one that he came here because he has a track record. He wants young, athletic, versatile, rangy players who sometimes can handle multiple positions, guys who can run well and defend well, and to fit into the modern game of flexibility in Major League Baseball. You want to know what David Stearns' ideal player is? You don't even have to guess. Look at his roster moves. Look at the Milwaukee teams. Outside of the Juan Soto move last offseason, which was clearly more about the owner than about the GM. Every player that Stearns has brought in has fit the same kind of mold. They're athletic, they're versatile, they're a good defender. They're a modern offensive approach. They play multiple spots sometimes. They're a good baseball player. They're a good base runner. They're not a one-dimensional slugger. That's the blueprint that the Mets are using, and Pete Alonso is not that blueprint. In fact, he's the exact opposite of that blueprint. That's why this was such a crystal clear move. So let's talk about Pete, the player, and what he's going to be in the future and why David Stearns is not interested. And again, this is not about now. This is a bet on the future. And Pete's profile, and I mean this in the nicest way possible because the guy accomplished a ton. He's a super likable player. When you take a look at his profile and what that means in Major League Baseball, you could not build a more custom-build player, a dangerous archetype, than the right-handed hitting first base / DH who brings you value exclusively through power. Those guys age like milk. Go back through history. Just do a little research. Guys who were incredible when they were 27, 28, 29, 30. When they hit 31 or 32, they fall off a cliff. The list of names is pretty self-evident. Cecil Fielder or Richie Sexson or Glenn Davis or Chris Davis or Tony Clark or Ryan Howard. I mean, those are all the same kind of players. And that's not an opinion. That's data. And that's what David Stearns is basing this on, the data. This is like counting cards. And that's decades of precedent. That's every projection model we have seen. Again, teams don't pay for what a guy has done. That's the trap. You pay for what you think the guy will do, a projection moving forward. And teams in baseball have been saying this for years. You don't pay a guy for what he's done. That's how you end up with a bunch of bad contracts that drag you underwater. Take a look at Albert Pujols' contract, paying him for what he did rather than where he was headed. Miguel Cabrera's contract the last few years, or Chris Davis or Ryan Howard or the other Mo Vaughn, especially the right-handed hitting first base / DHs. They do not age gracefully. That's what David Stearns is basing this on, not because he hates you. And Pete, for all the magic, for all the 40 home run years, for everything he has meant to the fan base, he fits that archetype. He is a one-dimensional player. That's the truth. His defense, even though you'll tell me about the scoops at first base, the advanced stats, the defensive run saved, the outs above average, they have never been kind to him. And as he ages, that's probably only going to get worse. The Mets have watched him for years. They know. They've got every angle and every analytic, every scouts know. They know exactly what they think his next 5 years are going to look like. And it's not just the home runs. Stearns took one look at that kind of picture, and it's not about the Pete Alonso's per se. It's that type of player. And he does not think that that's how you beat the Dodgers. And let's be honest, that has to be the goal. Not about keeping guys that you love or homegrown players or having him play his entire career. It's about going punch for punch with the Dodgers, who are the most complete, most stacked, most forward-thinking organization in the sport. You don't beat the Dodgers by locking in something because it makes you feel good emotionally as a fan. They don't lock in 30-something defensive liabilities who only have one tool. You beat the Dodgers by building on athleticism and defense and versatility and depth. And you know this. The Yankees get criticized all the time for being, they just have one type of hitter, and that fails in the playoffs. David Stearns is looking to build, not for a single, and he might not be able to do it in a single offseason, but this is the goal moving forward, and it meant not signing Pete because he does not fit that profile. So don't get this twisted. The Mets didn't lose Pete Alonso. You can't lose what you did not want. And this is not the same as Edwin Diaz. To me, losing Diaz is way worse. They did want him. They offered him a similar deal to the Dodgers, and they let him get away to the team that they want to be competing against over $3 million. That's inexcusable. The decision on Pete is debatable, but this is not a case where the Mets lost a player they wanted. They don't think he projects to be the same guy moving forward, and it's not like they're pulling this out of the clear blue sky. They have evidence to back up this decision. The Mets were not going to be the team to outbid the field. And let's be honest, there wasn't a great market for a guy who doesn't have great on-base percentage. Even last year, the second half, his on-base was .304. This is not a guy whose walk rate is moving in the right direction. They're not going to go the extra mile for a guy whose overall skill set is dependently based on whether the ball goes over the fence. When you've got one skill, this is what it comes down to. And you see that guy diminish anything when he hits 32, 33, 34. You have nothing to fall back on. And, I've heard a lot of comparisons between Pete and Kyle Schwarber, and they got similar contracts, but they're different players. Schwarber, even though he's defensively limited, even more so than Pete, he's just a DH, he brings elite walk rates. He brings elite plate discipline. He has improved swing decisions and some of the best bat speed. Now, Pete hits the ball very, very hard as well, but Schwarber has reinvented himself, and Pete really has not. Even in a year last year where he had a great first half, Schwarber has adapted his game, and Pete hasn't. Schwarber also has maintained elite on-base skills. He walks 100 times a season. That's important when you're talking about a player that ages, even one that's older than Pete Alonso. Now, look, signing Schwarber to 5 years might turn out to be bad down the road. But while Schwarber and Pete are both power hitters, Schwarber is an offensive machine. Pete is just a power hitter. And yes, there is a difference. Schwarber's offensive profile almost certainly will age better. Now, is it a guarantee? No. But Stearns knows that. He's seen it in Milwaukee, and he has seen it in how modern teams evaluate sluggers when they get to 31, 32, 33. He's seen the Dodgers, the Astros, the Braves, the Rays. They don't overpay for one-dimensional players, ever. Not at the top of the market. So let's get to the heart of this. The Mets did not move on from Pete because they don't like him or because they don't respect him or that they wanted to hurt the fan base or that they wanted to send a message. I don't even think this was about breaking up the core per se. They moved on because they don't think he fits their plan. He didn't fit the vision, and their vision is based in reality. It's not about, the homegrown player. They want to build a championship team in the future. Now, I don't know that will be in 2026. That remains to be seen. But David Stearns did not come to New York to be popular. He came to build a winner, and that's what he's going about the business of doing. The Mets have not won a World Series since 1986. How old were you in 1986? Were you alive in 1986? Chances are you weren't. So for their love of Pete and their hatred of David Stearns, I've seen some Met fans talking about, the Wilpons would never. The Wilpons? Some of the worst owners of all time? Sometimes, actually not sometimes, always, building a winner means making fans upset at some point. But someone has to be the adult in the room. Someone has to make those hard decisions. The Yankees made a bunch of trades before the 90s at the 96 trade deadline that fans did not like at the time. Graham Lloyd was a big one. And how did that work out in the end? Those organizations are disciplined. They stayed disciplined. They stuck to the model. They didn't hand out legacy contracts to guys because of past performance. And because of that discipline, they've built sustained winners. You have to have a plan when you go into this. And the Mets finally are acting like one of those teams. You would think the fact that the Mets are trying something different would be a good idea. And I get that Pete is beloved. Now, does this guarantee success? No. The Mets are going to dethrone the Dodgers tomorrow? Probably not. I don't know that anybody's going to dethrone the Dodgers anytime soon. But what Stearns is building with an intention is that's the goal, to eventually be the team on top. And that goal isn't to do what feels good on an emotional level. The goal is to build a baseball machine. And he does have a track record. I know last year was a disaster, but this is the time to make big changes and to get on that. I've said this for a while now. The Mets are not pretending to talk about it. They're actually doing it, and turning down Pete Alonso and moving on is the right move if that's the test, to build a championship team. So the moment where the front office had to choose a difficult decision, this should be good news to you that they have a conviction on this and they are sticking to the conviction even though it is wildly unpopular. So yes, Met fans, you can be upset, you can be sad. Pete meant a lot. He give you memories of a lifetime. He might be your favorite player all time, but don't say you were blindsided. Because if you didn't see this coming, well, then you simply were not paying attention. You wanted the Mets to run things as they've always done. And David Stearns is not going to do that. Now, will he be proven right? I'm not sure. But I'm betting you in a couple of years, the Orioles are going to be looking to maybe unload the back half of that Pete contract. And when you look at the Mets running at that time, in the future, a younger, deeper, more athletic, versatile roster, you might not say it out loud, but you'll know that David Stearns was right. Because championship teams are not built on sentiment. And just take a look at the market for Pete. It was the Orioles and basically nobody else. Nobody else wanted to go 4 years, 5 years. Championship teams are built on discipline and built by a model. And the Mets finally have someone who is running one. And I know that you hate David Stearns because right now, he is the worst GM in the history of the Mets. Last year was a disaster of a season, and this year he's gotten rid of fan favorites left and right. But he's not doing that to you. He's doing that for you. He's looking to build a team in a different way, and one that has been successful in Milwaukee with basically no resources, and now he's doing it with one which has the greatest resources. So how this ends up turning out, I'm not sure. But I think it was the right move, and based on history, I think that. Pete is a one-dimensional player who will not probably age well. Are there exceptions to that rule? Sure. But you don't play the exceptions. You play the rule. And whether or not the Mets are able to overcome all these losses in one off season, I have confidence. A couple of things. David Stearns is smart. People keep saying, oh, this guy's an idiot. He's a smart guy. That's not really debatable. And what's also not debatable is he's had a history of success building things his way. Will that lead to a championship? That's to be determined. But I'm telling you right now, when David Stearns puts his plan in place, history tells you that his teams have sustainable success year in and year out, something the Mets have never had in the history of their organization. So I think you got to give them a little operating room, even when it turns out to be a move that you personally despise. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you've not done it already, do me a favor, please, for the love of God. Hit that subscribe button. It really does help out the podcast, and we will be back next week with a fresh edition of Gordon Damer on Sports.